Everyone, it's Topline. It's really nice. We don't have any guests. We like guests, but it's just us. It's just the boys that all identify as boys. AJ, CEO of QuotaPass, Sam Jacobs, CEO of Pavilion, Asad, CEO of Sales Talent Agency. It's perhaps these are going to be the best takes you hear all week on DeepSeek. We are experts on China. We are experts on open source. We are experts on Javon's Law or whatever it's called. We know better than Mark Andreessen and Bill Gurley and Brad Gerstner and anybody else you're following on Twitter. It's us.
So it's funny, Sam, you say this because last week my CTO dropped to my co-founder and I, our co-founder group, like, hey, DeepSeek is huge. We should do something with this information. And I was just like, cool. And then check back a week later. He's like, yeah, we definitely should have done something with this information.
But done what?
What do you do? Short the market, I guess. I don't know.
I guess short NVIDIA. That would be the
foresight on that one. So no, you're not going to hear those takes from me, at least. Probably from Asad and Sam. But
and then he'll say, Sam, what do you think?
Sam,
I don't freaking know.
Neither do I.
Welcome to Topline, the podcast for the best founders, operators, and investors in B2B tech. Every week, AJ Bruno, Asad Zaman, and me, Sam Jacobs, will break down what's important for you to know to be the most well-informed professionals in the market.
Customer churn doesn't have to be unpredictable. Totango's Customer Revenue Optimization Suite delivers actionable insights empowering CS and revenue leaders to take strategic, proactive steps to retain and expand their most valuable customers. Take back control and put your revenue on repeat. Visit totango.com to learn more.
The only thing that was interesting was NVIDIA lost the equivalent of the entire market cap of the car industry sub-Tesla. In one day.
And then they're still worth $2.4 trillion.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
I think they were just looking for a reason to sell off.
I mean, I'm definitely up for talking about the oligarchical power and getting your take on it. But Asad, how are you? You look good. You look rested.
You know how if you go for a long run or you have some other sorts of acrobatics and you're very tired, but you have a smile on your face. That's me. We are flying at STA at a pace that is definitely not sustainable, but we're really enjoying it. And so I'm happy.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm sort of happy. AJ, are you okay?
I'm doing all right. We were talking right before I joined that didn't sleep super well, and similar to Asad, also flying at a pace that doesn't feel sustainable. So it's become more of the norm. Just deep in the bowels of the operations of the business, which both gives me energy and inspiration and also angst and frustration. So I have a lot of emotions going on today that I'm just like, all right, but all of them lead to I want to move as fast as possible. And oh, by the way, we did launch AI-powered plan builder today. So
I tested that out and it's fantastic. It's really cool.
Best thing ever.
We're so excited for it that we are really going to make some massive changes to our industry in sales compensation and focus on outcomes by the end of the year. So it's just the start for us.
Well, since we have such a robust docket today, let's actually click into this.
Oh, I think here's unsolicited feedback.
We're starting there.
Unsolicited feedback. You don't like it when they give you unsolicited feedback. Is that a Russian accent? No.
Does anyone ask you if you've... that was the worst Russian accent I've ever heard.
I couldn't place it as Russian.
It's a note perfect. You know whose impression I'm doing really well is James Carville. Go back to Delaware. Go back to Delaware.
Yeah, that's actually really good. I love
What's your unsolicited feedback here, Sam?
Just in terms of content marketing, like I have this thing called the Reservoir of Beliefs. That's TM that. That's mine. I got a couple things cooking these days in terms of phrases, and one of them's Reservoir of Beliefs. It's basically the things that people need to believe in order to, when they show up at your web, it's top of the funnel content. It's like believe these things, and then when you believe that you need those things will lead you to believe that you need sales commission planning software. But my point is, I think you should lose in the big scheme, lose the sales part. It's just about incentive comp. Your whole thing should be like incentive comp drives better performance. Everybody should be on incentive comp, and quota pass the way to get there.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I was doing
a really good idea. Strangely good.
I think where that actually
Strangely, what a jerk.
Did he say strangely?
Out of nowhere, like you said it, I was like, yeah, why are you sales comp, dude? Like, what are you doing?
I think the word sales is diminishing. I mean, I like the profession of sales, but I think it reduces a lot of what we all do every day, which, yes, technically it's sales, it's storytelling, it's problem solving. But anyway.
Well, here's a couple of different things that I think about with that. One is I was doing a listening call coaching with one of our CS reps yesterday, and the person brought two people on the call that were marketing and CS. And they're like, look, from a variable comp, we're so excited to roll this out. I wanted to bring these people on for our kickoff call. And I've done a really poor job internally in enabling the team to like, what do you do in that instance? And of course, there's one part of that, just an upsell. But if we're so focused on like the sales and the variability, which I totally agree, it's such an antiquated phrase to use as sales compensation, that we need to do a better job internally of changing that. So hear it first, folks, on Topline. Next week, our entire website, all the copy, all the enablement is going to be changing.
My advisory shares at work.
I know. Actually, strangely, it was very good advice, Sam.
It's actually really good advice, AJ. You guys should seriously consider this. Or do any of your competitors position against overall variable, or is everyone going after the category is sales?
I think at the very enterprise level, there's a move like the Exactly, and I see it from a Vericent standpoint, but those are all very services heavy organizations.
Yes.
And I think that's part of the build out. And where we started with sales comp it was like, okay, well, there's snowflakes, but for sales comp, it's not niche, but it's a little bit more narrowly defined. And then we'll broaden up. I mean, as we moved up market as an organization, we've started to help other teams, but we still haven't made that broad move. And I think today is the day, and Sam just put the stake in the ground for us, which I really appreciate.
Because that would double your TAM, right, in a second, essentially.
I mean, listen, my whole management team, is on a bonus plan, and certainly in a world of profitable, efficient growth, every company's talking about moving to profit sharing as some kind of incentive comp for the rest of the organization that's not sales people. And I don't, listen, do I know how to do that? Sure. Like I can make it up and I can figure it out, but brand is important. And if AJ came to me and said, listen, we've done, 10,000 hours of research. This is the industry leading thing. This is how you should do it. Because right now for companies like mine, which are, we are a quota path customer, but we don't have that many salespeople.
Right.
And because we sell all these different SKUs, like each salesperson selling like a subtly different SKU or majorly different SKU.
Complicated.
It's like building one-off comp plans through QuotaPath sometimes feels like it might be easier to just do it on a spreadsheet because like there's so many different wrinkles. But if QuotaPath could say, listen, this is for your whole company, it's not just for your sales team, I feel like that could be.
Well, our entire company is on QuotaPath. We use it for our North Star metric.
And we are, at STA, we are on it. We don't have salespeople, but for our recruiters. And so, positioning, that's really
Well, you don't believe in OTE or in variable comp, Asad.
I believe in variable comp.
Yeah, variable comp. You don't believe in quotas.
He doesn't believe in quotas.
He's not a quota fan.
More. How much is his quota? More.
On the AI front,
do better.
On the AI front, one interesting insight there is we're doing all these like conversations with key people and influencers. We had ours with Mark Roberge last week, and of course, he's like currently, I think, in terms of people that I think of like that are really seeing software and AI and the intersection of this, he's near the top of that list. And as Sam, you had that conversation with him last week, but he was asking just like, okay, I see a lot of AI. How does this like let me wrap my head around this. is this AI, or is this like really the kind of like the start of how like a non-AI company thinks about AI? Because it's actually a really interesting point where he sees a ton of AI first companies that are just directly all in on AI, but then he probably doesn't see that many companies today pitching him that are like, oh, we're 4 or 5 years old, because they've already raised their seed or series A and they're becoming AI outside of his portfolio. So it was a really interesting conversation for someone that sees so much AI and is just like living in a totally different universe in some ways, to bring it back to like, well, there's the commercial viability of what we do. And like, we have thousands of customers. So we have like real revenue there. But the other side of it is AI first companies are just like kind of racing to, I don't know, there was that post that was like in 2 months, a company went from 0 to 20 million in ARR. Didn't you post that, Asad?
Yeah.
How is that possible? How does that
Isn't
work?
that wild?
I don't know if is it true?
Well, for it to be true, one way of thinking about it is, in history, have we seen companies like that? And actually, in CPG, there are tons of companies that they launch something and they start flying immediately. So it's technically
But is it
possible.
is it true for a company you've never heard of? Who was the company?
I forget the name.
There's ex-Googlers. Everyone's always ex-Googlers, by the way. Do you ever see that? You're like, started by ex-Googlers. I'm like, okay.
I used to not see a lot of Google founders, but right now in this wave, we're working with a bunch of them as well. And you're seeing a lot more, like a lot more of them. Very engineering first orgs, actually, very interesting.
Yeah.
When you think of an AI first company versus a company like yours, is the core difference that an AI first company is leveraging AI a lot more than, let's say, the three of us might be leveraging it internally, operationally? And then they've also got this AI first product. Or is there a huge difference in like the product itself? Like, because if you're implementing AI on the foundation of what you've built, versus somebody is, let's say, building it from scratch with a lot of AI in mind, do you really get a very different outcome at the end of the day?
Well, here's what I would say to that. Think about the hiring. Let's just start with your world, Asad.
Yeah, so operationally, I can see it. Like,
Well, but the question that you need to ask for the DNA of the company when I go to hire everyone is like, well, give me your use cases on how you're using AI, and like the curiosity, right? So I won't hire anyone going forward that isn't like AI first minded in any role. You have to be curious about it. I kind of like it's akin to a question I used to ask in interview process that I think I brought up previously in 2012 when I was interviewing sales reps and was at Trend Kite, so we're doing a news app and current events were important. I was asking them, hey, do you know who Elon Musk is? And at the time in 2012, he had just had the Roadster released. So no one even really knew who he was. And then I mentioned Tesla, and Tesla was in the news. So if they didn't know who Tesla was, which 50% of like candidates didn't, I actually ended the conversation right there.
Hey, good, AJ.
So
I like that.
you like that. I knew you'd like that. And so similarly here, it's like
I like questions that one question gives you like 10 different insights.
It gives you all the insights on curiosity and like, do they care? But it's also tied to the organization, to our company as well. And like, did they do research on like thinking about what a use case for TrendKite might be? But for AI, it's thinking about that similar question. So what is that question that you want to ask? Like, you could ask the use case of it, but or how you're using it. But like, what's another way to maybe ask a question to get to suss out if they're like an AI minded individual?
What's something unique that you figured out with your usage of AI?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Sherry figured out that when you compliment it, this was early days, when you compliment it, the answers keep getting better and better for some reason. And that was like really interesting. It wasn't on any blog post, but when she told me and I tried it, it actually worked. And it's like, oh, interesting.
Well, it's kind of like, what's the book on your bedside table? This will be, what's your last prompt in GPT? Tell me your last prompt.
Oh my God. No, I can't tell you that. That's my private personal
That's
business.
like you can't ask them their age. That's like that. You can't ask that.
You can ask what their last prompt
Open
was.
up your GPT, show it to me. I want to see how you use it.
We did.
I'm out.
We had our kickoff yesterday, and we had the afternoon was an AI for go-to-market workshop, where the first part was everybody had to think of and build a project plan with AI on something that they were personally doing that they could improve, like where they could like improve a workflow or something in their day, and then And then we paired up into teams and spec'd out some community moonshot projects that we could be, because to AJ's point, if you're not, once you use it a little bit, then you tend to use it a lot, because the synapse that was firing that would say Google is just, it's very easy for that synapse to switch to answers, because that's what you really want in the first place. Even if somebody's like telling you that there's a hallucination, or yes, you have to check it. That's true. There's fewer hallucinations than, it's not 2 years ago when it first came
And then
out.
now you have sources, so you can really easily check
Yeah,
it.
exactly. And so once you start doing that, then you start asking it pretty much any question that you have in the world. It's always just so amazing to me how quickly I could ask it about immigration law in Spain, and then I could ask it about building a structure for a weekly meeting for an exec team, and then I could ask it how to cook something, and then I could take a picture of my calendar and say, where are there opportunities for efficiency based on what you see in my calendar? And it answers all of those questions in seconds. It's really quite neat, I have to say.
And Sam does this all in Spanish, by the way.
So we rolled out ChatGPT in the company maybe like 3-4 months ago. But we did something different this time. So before, when you roll something out, we roll QuarterPath out or something, you just roll it out for the whole organization, you onboard them. Here we said, we've bought it for everyone. You have to reach out to us to get it. And so we just announced that in a meeting. And I wanted to see like who reaches out first, who never reaches out. And does that tell us something? And it was really interesting. So it was like the oldest recruiters were part of the first cohort to reach out, because they'd been hearing that this is giving people an edge, and they wanted to get their hands on top of it. They didn't want to get left behind. So there was that like, I'm on top of this type of thing. And then obviously your very best. And then there's like this group that still hasn't signed up, that I'm like, okay, let's see if it correlates with performance in any interesting way. So that was an interesting experiment we did.
We were in New Orleans last week with a handful of people, and one of them was building a fast growing SaaS application in the partnership space, somebody that we all know. And he said, and I said, get rid of your lawyers, or at least use them for very, very specific things.
100%.
But you should not be paying anybody $400 or $500 an hour to review red lines anymore. And he's like, wait, you can do that?
What?
I'm like, come on, man.
Come on, dude. Haven't paid a lawyer in the last 2 years.
He's like, how do you? And then it's just interesting. Certain people who are in some ways on the cutting edge of innovation, that in other ways just feel like, well, this was just one more thing. It's like the Palm Pilot. I don't have time to figure out how to use the Palm Pilot. It's like, this is not the Palm Pilot, y'all. Like, you can just start typing.
I think this is the hard thing about running a business and building a business, that there's so much more work to be done than you can ever really get done on a day, in a week, in an hour, whatever timeline you use, that it's really hard to sometimes separate from like the minutia of the day to like think of things that will benefit you in the long term, but you have to get creative, or you have to think outside the box. It's such a hard thing for humans to be able to. I find myself sometimes struggling with that as well. Like, I look at my to-do list. It's like, I could work till the end of next week and not get done with this list. Where do I like separate from that and think a little bit more big picture about something else? I find that really hard. And I think it's hardest for early stage founders, probably.
Yeah. But so kind of looping back to the point that you asked, Asad, around like the AI first piece of it in the company, internally you get it. I think that's the hardest thing that scaled organizations are struggling with, though, in my opinion, is just getting everyone on the same page with how to use it. Because if you think about a high performing organization, the degree of alignment that each department has to have is just so key. And we think about that in terms of the CEO communication. Like, the best CEOs that I know are phenomenal communicators, fantastic storytellers. I know you both would say the same thing. And so the question, well, obviously, yeah. So when you listen to these great CEOs, what are they telling us when they talk about AI and how AI is going to be used in their organizations? It would be interesting to see and have a conversation with some like middle level directors or executives, even at some of these bigger scaled companies, to really better understand how they're transforming. But for for QuotaPath, I think it's just directively every single day and week, we internally just drum the beat of like, here's how we're using it. Here's the best use cases. Here's how we're using it. And then we've, as I've said, made someone AI ops specific in Brandon. And then
That's
on the
cool.
product side of the house, we're just going all in. Every single feature has to have some level
AJ,
of tie-in.
how
to
does
AI.
that AI ops role work? So is that his entire
Full-time.
role?
Yeah, that's his entire role.
So tell me how he spends his time. Like, how long has he been doing this?
So
This is cool. This is
10
interesting.
years experience. That was on the job description. Must have 10 years experience with large language models.
With AI, don't have it. Sorry. No
Well, Asad, I was listening to a Topline episode before, and I listened to this idea that revenue operations is a joke of a role, and I was like, you know what? I need to change all my RevOps leaders.
You change your RevOps guy.
Yeah, actually, Brandon. So Brandon was our head of RevOps.
I
Gave
also
him a
saw
new
that
hat.
your VP of RevOps is now VP of Sales, Marketing, and then RevOps.
Yeah,
Or
I
sales,
handed off
customer
marketing.
success, and then RevOps.
and Ryan Milligan. So in the fall, I started to circulate this idea with Brandon. I'm like, hey, well, we were on a call. We were like looking at different tools. He's used Clay for 3 years, so he's been like at the forefront of some of the go-to-market AI things. And he in June automated a lot of our outbounds, and we did a lot of testing. And 10% of our total pipeline came from his automated outbound as one SDR. So 10% of our pipeline was from one SDR.
And does it close? Like, remember, Tomas was saying it doesn't close, or he'd heard that somebody had
The
generated.
win rates are slightly lower, but our win rates are pretty high. 35% is our opportunity win rates. They're 22%, I think, is our outbound win rate. So but I actually think it's better if it's targeted from
You guys
the
must
right
have
standpoint.
very tight filters on what is a SQO, a SQO.
I've never agreed with this number.
He's just
Nobody has
Something's off there, guys.
So when Brandon and I were
Closing
talking,
60%.
Milligan creates the opportunity. Like I said, right before it closes, he's like, "Hold on."
not yet.
Opportunity.
Hold.
All right, and the contract's in, and close one.
Okay, cool. Opportunity. We're up to 65% close one rate.
The bond debt starts with this number.
I also just we're on episode 100 of Topline basically here, and I have 5,000 customers, and so our close rate's 106% overall.
This is a man that likes to round up.
Like any good founder CEO.
I have like a LinkedIn post or a talk track about how you just got to understand every number you hear ever from any CEO is a lie unless they're a public company.
I don't think it's a lie. It's aspirational, and that's the difference.
It comes from a good place.
Yeah, we're good natured.
Right. Why am I such a buzzkill? I'm a glass half empty kind of guy.
I was at a dinner party the other week, and I was telling a story about a coincidence that happened, and I made the comment like, yeah, this person found out, and then the next day this person within 24 hours also found out similar news. Crazy. And my wife just shook her head and she goes, it was 48 hours, AJ. And I was like, Angela, you're ruining my storytelling by saying
the same thing.
I'm
no better than you, AJ. I'm no better than you.
I appreciate it, Sam. I appreciate
it. It's tough running $100 million business. business.
Being a billionaire has a heavy burden.
Yeah. So AI Ops, Brandon had explored a lot of these tools that are coming to the forefront. And I mean, there's some that are really early. There's a tool called Smith OS that we've explored. A former coworker of mine started a company called Dream that is like build any apps. You hear about the cursors, the operators of the world, but how can you take that operating system and basically overlay it over your organization is his job. So across the board is just automation on every single part of. Yeah.
What's he gotten done in the last 60 days?
Well, he's on parental leave right now. So
a high impact type of guy.
Oh my God. That is your timing is impeccable. Career in stand-up comedy. This man is so efficient, he doesn't even work. He doesn't even do anything. He actually
I like
hasn't
this role.
done the job at all. That's how good he is. That's how good he is. Brandon.
Brandon. He's his last name's Smith, so I just send him like Matrix gifs of Agent Smith, which he absolutely detests and hates and rolls his eyes at quite a bit. So
I do think that this role is critical. I've been spending some time with some larger organizations, companies that are doing somewhere between like say 200 to like $1.5 billion in revenue. And I've been quite in the weeds with them. And when you spend a lot of time with them operationally, you realize that it's going to be very difficult for these companies to integrate AI operationally in their businesses. It won't be that hard for them to do it on the product side. I think that's actually a more solvable problem. But operationally, you don't see it. Like, you don't see even a little bit of usage. And now it's across multiple odds where it's like, hey guys, have you tried like using ChatGPT for this thing? And it's like, no, it's not there. So it's not going to come out of the functions themselves, where I think it, in an ideal world, comes out of the functions, because you understand the depth of that function and you can figure out the best use cases for yourselves. But I just don't see it happening. I think there's going to have to be some type of centralized role that has the weakness of not having the deep functional expertise, but is at least driving the initiative for these companies, is saying, okay, HR, let's sit down. Let's do what Sam did. Like, let's have a half-day session where we first teach you how to use this thing, create your account, and get you some basic fundamental training. And then let's brainstorm. Like, let's come up with 10 ways we could use this to do things a lot better. And I think it's going to be somebody like Brandon sitting down with these functions and leveraging their functional expertise, but pushing them in this direction. Because if these orgs leave it to people to figure it out, that's very risky. And I just don't see a world in which many of them are going to figure it out.
it won't be successful.
It's going to be a disaster.
Are you being paid what you're worth? Pavilion's compensation report has become an industry standard for go-to-market leaders to benchmark their compensation, equity, and other employment terms. We're refreshing the report for 2025 and need your input. To get early access to the results, take the anonymous survey at joinpavilion.com/comp. That's COMP, or click the link in the show notes.
Will that cost any organization, like the company?
Massive.
As a
I
company?
think this is the thing that will. I actually think the innovator's dilemma thing, I don't think it holds true the same way right now. Like, you do see big companies moving fairly quickly in integrating it into their products in some really interesting ways. And they have the advantages of distribution. So I think that's there. But if you don't gain the operational advantage, then you're driving this car, and you're moving in this direction where distribution is getting harder. And so your costs are going to get higher and higher. And you need to find a way to balance these costs out. And that comes with finding efficiencies. Otherwise, you're going to drive it off a cliff. Even if your product has some cool functionality, if you don't get the operational leverage that this gives you, as an asset, you are now not the most attractive asset. And so there's this really interesting thing happening in the market right now where we're saying, on one side, SaaS is dead. On the other side, we're saying this year, next year, all these SaaS companies that have been waiting to go IPO are going to go IPO. Well, the P&L of a business is its blueprint, right? You can learn a million things about a business just looking at its P&L. And when these companies go public, their P&Ls are going to be compared to organizations that are leveraging AI and are finding efficiencies. And if it looks like this is a dinosaur, well, it's going to get a discount in the market for that. And so I think this is a very dangerous situation for these at-scale companies. Their risk is more operational than product.
I got a question for both of you guys, because we're seeing something at QuotaPath that I haven't seen before, which is redlining of contracts that say you cannot use our data for AI. And I'd be curious as to see if you're hearing anything on that, or how would you guys handle that for customers that are like about to sign contracts where it's actually, that's not where the world's moving. So it's like, no, I'm not going to just pull one customer's data out. We're going to anonymize it, but I can't pull customers' data out on that.
I mean, did you ever have that conversation about non-AI use of data?
Yeah, for sure. We have only out of all of our contracts, I think only one contract has been pulled on that data front.
That's interesting. What's the advantage to the client for allowing you to leverage their data is where my mind goes, right? Like,
Well, that's what I say. It's an opt-in. I think it needs to be an opt-in thing. If they're not allowing us to use AI, then do we pull all AI parts of the product out for them when they go to use it?
well, I think the first part is positioning, right? Is like, let's not have that conversation. So let's help them understand at the onset how
What they're
anonymized
used.
it is,
Right.
how
But this is
not.
a lawyer, though, Asad. This isn't the direct end client. This is a red line from a lawyer.
Yeah, but by the time it gets there, you've already done the groundwork where the rest of the team tells the lawyer, no, we're good, like we're fine. The lawyers will back off when operations or finance, somebody else tells them, chill, I'm good with this. That's how the lawyer will act.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's the first time I've seen it. But you're right, Sam, where we've already had the data, and we have similar conversations that Asad says, and it's never been an issue. I just was wondering if AI is like specific to it, because we did have to send out the sub processor notification that you probably all have gotten for all the tools that you use of like, hey, we have for SOC 2 type 2 compliance. That's the other thing, is just
No idea.
building a product today. Have I told you all how much fun it is?
Have you guys seen the memes where I saw Andreessen posted one and now it's become popular, and it's so funny because this is speaking of regulatory burden. It's a meme of like these guys fighting, and it's Meta and DeepSeek and OpenAI and Anthropic, and then there's a guy sitting by himself, and it says EU, and the thing that he's working
Oh,
on,
yeah.
keeping the plastic attached to the cap so that it doesn't fall off. And that was very telling to me, and I was very proud of myself, because as soon as I moved here, I made that joke, because I was like, this thing isn't coming off. And she was like, well, yeah, it's like we hurts dolphins and stuff like that. Like, this is just this is Europe in a nutshell.
It really is.
Y'all did it. You saved it. You solved the problem.
It's so interesting because you've got Asia and North America that are doing really well with AI. And you actually have some companies out of Europe, Synesthesia, I think is how you say it. You've got a couple of others, but that ecosystem is just a few steps behind. And
Well, Manny would say
the
it's
regulation.
not, but I just think the perspective is just, it's just trying to, I don't know.
Sam, I was always wondering, I used to look at these fines that the EU would put on Apple and Google, etc. And it was always like numbers that seemed meaningless to an Apple, like 250 million, 1 billion. It's like, okay, they can handle that. But then you kind of look back and you say, over the last 5 years, how much have these companies been fined? And that number is significant. That really, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Like these companies, if every few months you have to pay $1 billion, over time it adds up. Like it really does.
I don't have access to what is it, Sona, the video generator?
Yeah, Sora.
They don't have that in Europe. There's a lot of stuff that they're not going to release. OpenAI will not release. I don't think Operator is available in Europe. Because
Operator?
Invest in the VPN network. That's what
I have ExpressVPN, but it's just so lame that like,
yeah, that's lame.
I mean, they don't understand. This isn't anyway. Doesn't matter. What else should we talk about?
What did you guys think when you saw Operator?
I thought it was pretty neat.
Have you done anything with it?
Not yet. Now I'm back in Europe, and I seriously don't think it's available.
Actually, huh?
Yeah, no, I'm serious.
Oh wow!
But I have to check. I mean, what I think is, I think what I texted you all. I think the singularity is near. And I
we're not ready for it.
Spending hundreds of billions now. This is his moment.
We're not ready for it.
AJ, as a product person, what's your view on specialized agents versus general agents? So you see Operator, and it's quite interesting. And so there is a question mark that all these AI agent companies, every company is going to have an agent, who's going to have 1 million agents running around. But then you kind of look at Operator and you're like, well, why won't we just have that? And it just does everything. Like, why do we need an agent from 50 different vendors. Why don't we have just that agent and it'll do everything we need it to do? It'll be smart enough and you can fine tune it a little bit and it's off to the races. And so all these AI agent companies that have been invested in are actually in a precarious position because the generalist agent with some fine tuning done by just the individual will be powerful enough. Why not?
You're using the term product very generously as describing me as a product person. I really
He loves
appreciate
that. He said that a few times over the last couple of weeks.
I'm trying to push
you're a
AJ in
product
the
CEO.
product direction.
Yeah, your product. Asad, I think this is the crux of it. I don't have a clue. I literally don't my brain can't comprehend some of this stuff that I mean, Sam talking about the singularity of it. I was spent when we were texting on it. I was spending time trying to actually think about what that would truly mean, and my brain really hurt when I was doing it. So I was like, okay, this is tough. And so you're bringing it back down a layer, which I appreciate. Of okay, well, what's real and tangible, and what's in the market today and starting to be commercialized. I think even then, it's still really, really tough to truly understand. It's is there any company out there that's okay, we're all working on Operator now. I want to know what happened to that company that got rid of Salesforce and NetSuite or whatever. And that was
Klarna.
yeah. How's that going? I really want to know.
They're not going
They'll
to
be
tell us. They're
public
going
soon,
to
so
lie.
we'll get to look at the blueprint of that business soon.
They're gonna
See,
don't
the
ask the
original
CEO.
point of podcasts, they are all liars.
They're all liars. I mean,
Our use of Salesforce.
here's the question, kind of switching gears a little bit, but still on the same track of okay, Sam had a offsite yesterday. Sam, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned you used AI, but you came off of last week a CEO summit that AI didn't tell you there was going to be a snowstorm in New Orleans, did it? And you
red herring argument. Also there was a snowstorm, so climate change isn't a thing.
Exactly right. But did you have a retro on last week as part of your offsite yesterday?
We didn't have a retro because the offsite was the whole company, and the whole company wasn't involved in the CEO summit. It was our marketing and events team, and we capture feedback. A retro on what do you got in that?
No, I just was wondering how for all of you that are listening out here that are not CEOs, the CEO summit was to be held in person last week in New Orleans, and Sam promptly got there on Monday night. I was supposed to get there Tuesday, and Tuesday morning got a text from Sam "There's no snow. This is ridiculous. We're not making any changes. Fly into Baton Rouge, AJ. Fly into Gulfport, Mississippi. You'll be fine." And unfortunately for 150 plus CEOs, there was just no way to get into New Orleans. So you all had to pivot pretty quickly. And I was just wondering if the offsite was connected into a retro. But you guys did a tremendous job for sure last week.
That was exceptional.
It was impressive. I guess the thing that I'm proudest of, to be honest with you, is that you didn't sense, particularly from me, I think in years past, maybe in a different place in my life, I would have been unhappy and really anxious and frustrated. And maybe this makes me, a lifestyle business versus, I don't know, but my reaction was I can't control the weather. So I'm not going to worry about it. I mean, we're going to do what we got to do. We're going to move quickly and try to make good decisions and, try to be happy and have fun. Whoever was there, it was a once in a lifetime event. It was 10 inches of snow in New Orleans, most they'd gotten since 1895. People in the city could not get around because the streets were covered in snow and ice, and they don't have plows, and they don't have salt, and they don't have apparatus to clear snow. So you just waited for it to melt. And still, we managed to get all of the speakers virtually. We got everybody to connect virtually. We created virtual breakout rooms for people to have private conversations. And we heard from, and I thought the content itself was really quite good, actually. We had a conversation with Roberge, which I really liked. I'm sure it's part of his talk track, but he had this great comment about innovator's dilemma and how even when you know it's happening, it's so hard to fight. He made this point that if you'd gone to Siebel in 1998, I'm sure you've heard this before, AJ, and said this will happen. Salesforce will happen. The cloud will happen. But you need to do these things. You need to fire all of your enterprise salespeople that don't have any experience. You need to get rid of all of the data centers that you just invested in that are multi-billion dollars. You need to re-architect the whole thing. That's going to cost $1 billion. And it won't become clear for 3 years, but I'm telling you it will happen. The CEOs of those enterprise on-prem companies would still not do it because of near-term incentives. We heard from Adam Robinson. We heard from Alina. One thing that how is this all connected to what we're talking about? I think software development in the world of AI is the commodity, which we've said, or at least it's much more commoditized.
Mhm.
And in this world, human interaction and face-to-face interaction and human experience is at a premium, which is why GTM efficiency is going the wrong way and why it's becoming more expensive to go to market, because getting somebody's attention is really hard. And it was interesting listening to Adam Robinson talk because, retention.com, his businesses, he is an expert at building what are effectively influencer businesses
Mhm.
without any other moat besides that fact.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And so, he's better at it than me, right? You could say that Pavilion is an influencer business in a way, right? It's my
you became influential with Pavilion becoming it kind of
Well, the thing-
now you want this Sam when you started Pavilion.
That's true. The thing that it was interesting was that Adam's he's like, what are we going to do next, right? How do we innovate our way? Because apparently our B2B is also suffering from major churn. But meanwhile, he posted the financials. I think retention.com, generates $1 million in EBITDA a month, and they've never raised money. So, $12 million a year, and he only has to do it. It only has to stick around for a couple of years, and he can dividend out the entire cash flow to him and his investors or him and his friends or whatever, and not have to work. I'm sure that's not interesting to him, but here's my point. My point is, because, and it's sort of what is he? Is he a product person or is he an influencer? Because then he laid out a little bit of his roadmap, and it was he's starting a paid community for bootstrap founders, and he's building a course. And I'm like, Jesus. It's it's all the same. It's all the same. The playbook is all the same. Everything comes back to the same playbook, which is,
Was that his intent at the very beginning of this?
No, I'm sure, he thinks about him. He thinks of himself as a product guy. He thinks of himself as he builds SaaS products, and definitionally he does. But it seems like in this world that because that's such a commodity, everything comes down to attention and brand and personality, and you could, again, I've heard people say, Pavilion is so wrapped up with the myth of Sam, and Sam is so wrapped up with Pavilion that that's got to depress enterprise value. And I guess one part of me is thinking maybe that's the only path to creating meaningful enterprise value.
That's like saying that Apple and Steve Jobs. What a negative.
Well, thank you for comparing me to Steve. Or Christianity and Christ, right? It's exactly the same thing.
It's guys, this is how it works. Somebody decides to take the lead,
and then Sam and Pavilion,
Steve Jobs
and Apple, and
Jesus.
Christianity and Christ.
Look at NVIDIA today. NVIDIA today is Jensen at every conference with all these pithy quotes and all these interesting takes, and
but
enterprise value is only gone up.
I would push you. So prior to 3 years ago, Jensen had been running NVIDIA for 25 plus years. I push anyone to say who the CEO of NVIDIA was.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Right now, in this moment in time, when they've kicked into a different gear, he wasn't let the product do its thing and I'll step back and the enterprise value will shine. He's we don't do both
front
these
center.
things.
I'm going to wear a leather jacket.
And he seems like he's enjoying it. He's got his leather jacket on. He looks like a cool dude.
Fine.
Yeah.
This is it. I was thinking over the weekend that out of the many businesses I know, if I was betting on one for the next 20 years to have sustained value, it would actually be Pavilion.
I was hoping you were going to say that at the end of that sentence. Let's go.
And the reason
I think it's Bonobos. I think
Bonobos.
The truth
I think it's
It's on the
I think
Untuck
it's
It brand.
SeatGeek. It's like, where did that come from? It's like, we got
No,
some
we
like
just
now.
random brands.
Because I thought sports teams are going to be in higher demand in the future because humans will crave these like analog experiences of humans versus humans playing football. It'll be so interesting. Like, would you be as interested in like 12 robots playing against each other, 11 robots playing against each other? I don't know, right? Like, I think I like the human versus human, the imperfections of the humans coming into the equation. And so if that type of analog experience is going to hold a premium, then analog things I think hold a premium in the future, and community is extremely analog. So it's like when we need to get away from all the AI and robots around us, we're probably going to want something that's like a community. So I actually think it's a very
I was
sustainable.
thinking about this, Austin, in a different way. I was actually going to say and make the declaration. I think I'll say it here as well, Sam. The biggest disappointment I think I'll have in 2025 is not being in person for the CEO summit for that
Wow.
reason. Truthfully, like
Really?
I love that event. I truthfully love that
Yeah, we
event.
love that event.
The Miami,
That event.
which by the way, everyone was like, "Oh, it's going to be in Miami because of snow next year." I was like, "You all missed the Miami boat. We had Miami CEO summit already."
And Miami
But
was great.
I loved the Scottsdale, the hike, the content. I came a day early. It was just like a great.
You know who was great that was in person that made it to New Orleans was Maria from Built-In.
Yeah.
I love that. She's awesome. And
She, by the way, I was in a breakout group with her, and she said that you and Kathleen were like seemed so calm, and she would have been freaking out, but she made that comment in a breakout group. That was with her. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's nice to say. I mean, like, I tend to think, I'm quite excited about Pavilion equally because I think I think brand, I mean, I've said this a million times, but, Asad, when you and Kyle host a super dinner in Toronto, and whether you say it's Pavilion or it's not Pavilion, like there's no moat to influential people being able to like bring other people together. So why is it different when it's Pavilion? Why should it be different? And it's because of brand. It's because there's an infrastructure in place to make, in the same way that you could have everybody over to your house, or ever to a really nice co-working space, but being a member of Soho House probably is still better than just showing up to a random co-working space. And so then I think, if as long as we continue to invest in the brand, one of the things I'm most excited about is the reality. Right now, it's just nothing happens when you cancel your membership. If especially for the three of us, like if we canceled our Pavilion membership, we'd still be friends. But we're going to be introducing switching costs and gamification this year, which is just a way of saying like you're going to get all kinds of badges, and once there's a penalty, once you're like, hey, you can cancel your Pavilion membership, but we're going to pull your CRO school certification and this certification. It will be out of date. You need to renew it annually to be in good standing, but cancel if you want to. By the way, you've achieved this reputation score. Then all of a sudden there's like that kind of moat becomes really, really interesting. And and then you come back to the fact of like, well, what are people going to value? We're going to be able to get any answer. There's no answer. The chatbot that we build, which of course we're building, that'll download all of the Slack content. It'll be trained on only Pavilion data. So sure, it'll be like better than the internet, but you'll still be able to get through ChatGPT, like give me the top 5 AI go-to-market tools that exist. But the thing that nobody else will be able to do is bring people together in meaningful ways with the brand halo, with the thing of like, we belong to this. There's a bigger idea at play.
There's a net.
We're representing that with each other when we come together.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, the NPS question they asked, how disappointed would you be if we took this thing away? I found out. I answered for you. And so, Asad, you need to call Sam the product guy going forward in all the episodes.
I don't know about that.
I think the benefits of something like community, from at least what I've experienced, it's a compounding benefit. It's like kind of putting money in an index over a long period of time, and you don't realize it in the next year. But 5 years in, you're like, oh, like this was really meaningful. And I think the rate of return goes up the more digitized the world around you becomes, the more automated the world around you becomes. And so then you're going to crave these experiences. You're going to crave going to a restaurant where a meal is cooked by a human being. with their love and their imperfections. You don't crave going and watching a bunch of humans play a sports game. I think those things will hold a higher premium in the future because humans crave human connection. We crave companionship. We crave human connection. And the places that offer that to you, where they've made it their craft to perfect how to offer it to you, I think those places will be held in high regard in the future. And it's not about any one event or even just the brand. I think it's like the overall package of things. It's like, here's 50 things that are going to happen over the course of this month, and you won't interact with all of them, but somebody else will go to 3 events and will hear some things over there and think about them, and you'll do 2 other things and you'll develop some perspective from it. And then when these 2 things connect, that conversation is going to be this really unique, interesting conversation. It'll help us orient ourselves. It'll help us feel more human. And I'm really bullish on those. Like if I could, I would invest in a sports team right now. I would, I still would never invest in a restaurant, but sports teams, communities, these things I think are going to become more and more important in the future. But not the sort of community where, the Adam Robinson of like, I'm going to create a small, it's the same as like every YouTuber creating a community and having a course associated with it. There is a distinction. That is the outcome of a following. This is the thing. And I think the thing is going to hold a lot more value than people that are just trying to figure out what are all the ways I can increase the dollar return per audience member that I have. We've seen this game on YouTube. That game will play out on every social network possible. There's 3 things you can do. You can create a community and charge for it. You can have a course, and you can have some type of a product that people pay, merch or something of that sort. Fine, great, but this is different, I think.
Well, from your lips to the world's ears. And with that, by the way, one last point that I'll make on that. AJ has a hard stop. In the movie Her, right, which is, still like this beautiful vision of the future, what is Joaquin Phoenix's job? His job is creating gift cards, like writing greeting cards.
That's right.
And exactly to your point, Asad, it's this thing where like obviously an AI could create that, but like it's custom, it's curated, it's artisanal. The artisanal experiences are what people pay for. Everything else is handled by, Scarlett Johansson. Asad, do you have a question for us, or do you want to do shout outs wins of the week? How would you like to end this episode?
Dave, let's do shout outs because I think you should do, you'd have some good shout outs based on the event that just happened. So today we'll do shout outs.
Okay. Well, I hope I don't forget anybody, but we did move from an in-person summit to a virtual summit, and I do need to thank everybody that had a big hand to do with that. So a couple of the people, Melanie Nye on our events team, Kathleen Booth, head of marketing and growth, Josh Carter, Susan Bird, who was on site, Maddie Helwig was on site. Those are the main people, but I need to. Jeremy Chaplin was pretty instrumental in making sure that all of our branding and everything was executed the right way. I really think Susan and Maddie stood out just because they're always, and then Melanie, because Melanie was herding all of the speakers for the event and making sure that they showed up and making sure that they were present. And then, of course, me. Got to give a shout out to myself. I didn't panic.
Steve
I was
Jobs.
optimistic and happy. And yeah, exactly. Those are my shout outs. If I forgot anybody, I'm really Colin Denny. Colin helped, of course. AJ, what about you?
I will give my shout out to my chief product officer, Wyndham Hudson. This is his first launch since joining in September, joining the team. And the last month, he's done a phenomenal job to make sure everything is on point for AI-powered Plan Builder to launch successfully today and have access to all of our customers. We had a go, no go conversation yesterday coming down to the wire, and he's just curated a fantastic experience for our customers. So definitely check it out. It's in a trial account, and you can play around with it at quotapath.com.
And it does incentives for your entire company.
Incentives for your entire company, for all your organization.
By tomorrow, you better change this on your website.
All of Pavilion's employees are going to be customers starting tomorrow.
Cap table management.
I'll end it. So I want to shout out 2 individuals that wrote guest editorials over the last 2 weeks for Topline.
So good.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Julie Perforsky, who had built Winning by Design's customer success practice. Now she does her own thing. She wrote a wonderful piece on customer success. And then Matt Braley, who wrote a wonderful piece on how to think about sales commissions as we move towards usage-based
Sales
pricing.
commissions, usage.
Incentives. And there was just I know how much effort it takes to write these things, and I know how much effort it takes when you don't have practice to write these things, and I know how much care and love they both put into it. Matt was working till 3 a.m. one day. Julie worked multiple days on it. I just feel very grateful that people like them are willing to lean into things like this. And then many thousands of people read it and everybody wins, and it's fantastic. So shout out to those two and everybody who read it.
Awesome. All right, folks. Thanks so much for listening to my co-hosts. Great seeing you both. And give us 5 stars on the iTunes store. Tell your friends about it. And yeah, that's all we have for now. Thank you.
Next week.
Everyone.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
This episode was brought to you by AirCall, the business communications intelligence platform. Deliver a better experience for your customers and your teams at AirCall. That's AIRCALL.io. Save time, save money, and improve performance with a single communications platform.
Thanks for listening to Topline. New episodes come out every Sunday. If you like what you heard today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, leave a 5-star review, and share it with your friends. Don't forget to join our Topline Slack channel to connect with us and discuss the topics we cover with other listeners. Click the link in the show notes. Lastly, if you're interested in joining Pavilion, you can learn more about membership at joinpavilion.com/membership. Thanks again for listening.